You can look for networking opportunities too. That would be another really good tip. Also, if you're doing your preceptorship, if you're doing your clinical rotations and it's in an area that you are super interested in, make sure that you connect with the teams that are providing the training.
Hello, welcome to Scrubs Unzipped, Unveiling Healthcare's Hidden Passions. And today I have a special guest. Her name is Lisa. Can you introduce yourself, Lisa?
Hey y'all, I'm Lisa Gregory. I live in South Carolina and I work as a healthcare recruiter. It's so great to be here on my very first podcast.
Oh my goodness, the very first. Well, hopefully, this is the best.
Yes, it will be. I can tell.
So, can you tell me a little bit about your experience working as a recruiter for healthcare?
Yeah, I've been a recruiter for a whopping 20 some odd years. I think it's like 23. Let's not say the exact amount. And I started my career in IT recruiting, and I did that for a little while, and then I moved into healthcare, and I have been in healthcare ever since, and just love it so much.
What do you love about it?
I think there's hardly a position that you can shake a stick at in the hospital that I've not recruited for before in my career.
Mhm.
And I think it is, especially when you do more of the entry level roles and then you watch that person move into other roles as they grow and continue in their career. That's very rewarding because then you get to develop relationships and you watch people grow and have success, and that's really fun. And then on the other side of the coin, working specifically for a hospital system, and I've worked at a couple over my career, it's very rewarding to have a part in the community like that, because the hospitals, impact the community so much and the care that the community receives. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to be part of what the community is getting as a result of the people that are being hired into the hospital. So that's another kind of thing that I really like, since I can't be on the front lines in the patient care areas, because I will tell you, I'm not a fan of needles. And so since they don't need to have me, all squeamish somewhere, freaking the patient out, this is as close as I can get to helping in those kinds of scenarios. And so it's really rewarding.
I think I lost you. Can you hear me?
I
Hello?
can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
So that is, yes, I can hear you. I just hear like a
Okay.
feedback
Okay, awesome.
noise. Do you hear that? Do you hear like the
I
feedback
don't hear
noise?
feedback. Mm-mm.
Oh, you don't?
I
Oh,
don't.
okay. It's just my end.
Is that better?
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I'll just have to edit it out.
Okay.
So, in what is your passion? What do you do beside outside of your outside of your healthcare recruiting job?
So I've had a very interesting last 12 months or so with a side hustle. Somehow I have ended up becoming a virtual missionary. And so back in October, it was really late December or October of 22 ish. Yeah, 22. So not even just coming up on a year. I'm definitely a person of faith, and God told me that He was going to start increasing my social media for His glory. And then I proceeded to watch hundreds and hundreds of people connecting with me on my social media, like in Facebook and places like that. And I did not do anything. I sat there and watched them roll in. Like, what in the world is going on here? And as they were coming in, I was trying to sort through them and figure out which ones were the right ones to connect with. And they were global, like it was all over the world. I'm talking in the US, of course, and then Canada, but in Nepal, in Brazil, in Thailand, in Uganda, Nigeria, Kenya, Pakistan, India, China, you name it, I think every nationality was represented. And so then I'm like, well, now what are we going to do with all these connections, Lord? And so then we ended up, because now I've been married for 27 years. My husband and I have been, but we do not have any children. And so we do things with children in our life, like my niece and nephew, and my cousin has a little boy. His name is Max, and we do a lot with him. And then we have some other girls that are connected with my family through the church that I grew up in, and I'll do things with them. So I'm a big kid at heart, and I'm always doing some kind of shenanigans, some kind of trip to the zoo, the beach, to something, to just, snow tubing, indoor skydiving, all kinds of stuff. And so some of the people who were connecting with me online were ministers in these areas that are underpopulated globally, like Pakistan in the village areas, and Kenya, that's outside of the city, and Nigeria. And a lot of the ministers that were connecting with me had orphanages, or they had programs for underprivileged children. Like in Pakistan, they have a lot of children who absolutely work in a brick kiln. You spell it KILN. Sometimes they'll call it a brick kilns, like brick kilns, KILNS. And that's where they make the bricks. And so those children are essentially in slavery, and they have no education. They don't get an opportunity to go out and do like normal kid things. And so I started kind of thinking, what if we take those children with us on the shenanigans that I do virtually? So we will record what we do at like the zoo, and in South Carolina there's a real famous zoo. It's one of the best zoos nationally. It's called Riverbank, and we've gone snow tubing, and we've gone what else have we done? Oh, indoor skydiving. And so we've made little videos out of that, and then we put a Bible lesson to it, and then we show it to the children in these underpopulated areas, or some of the underprivileged children, and we're playing with them that way. And then we make a game, and we have a Bible lesson. And that is how I have somehow fallen into becoming a virtual missionary. And something happened where that turned into, just me talking about it on my social media turned into me being asked to be a radio host on a global network program. So I'm also doing that. So it's just been a wild 12 months. So right now, those are my side hustles along with my day job.
Wow, that is so cool. So, how do you balance doing your side hustle and side passion with your normal job?
That's a great question. I keep telling God that He has me in boot camp because He keeps waking me up at like, 3 a.m. to come in and pray and spend time with Him, because that's about the only quiet time that I get. I, I, I've always been kind of a calendar follower because of my role. There's always one meeting after another. And the one thing about a recruiter life that I think you wouldn't know unless you kind of worked in it is it really works a lot like it's organized chaos. Like there are many, many priorities, and they shift and change throughout the day. And so you just kind of have to, I just call it riding the wave. You have to just roll with it. But I live by my calendar. And so I'm very regimented with that. And that's how I've incorporated the virtual missionary work. And it kind of works out well too, because like in Pakistan, if it's 7 a.m. here in the States, it's 4 o'clock there. And so I can do some things before work starts here, and it still is later in the afternoon there. So that kind of has worked in my favor too.
Wow, that is so awesome that you get to balance like what you love. But you said you do love like recruiting. So can you share anything specific, like, or anything like a client success story that deeply
Yeah.
resonated with you in your work or in your side passion?
Yeah. And I think because I'm a person of faith that it's natural for me to kind of combine both of them. Of course, you don't do a lot of speaking about religion in your day job because you want to be respectful of everybody, but having a prayer life and praying over the areas that you're recruiting for and the staff and the staffing and the leadership, because especially during COVID, it's high pressure. The teams were on the front lines, and there was all kinds of shuffling around, like determining where to put the patients, and the OR would stop seeing patients, and so what happens with that staff? And there's just a lot of moving parts, and that's stressful. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
anytime you have a stressful situation like that, being able to come in and support those teams with prayer, even if it's on the back end behind the scenes and they don't know about it, they you can tell a difference in the way that they're interacting with you and with others. It doesn't feel like there's such panic around what's going on,
Yeah.
and it seems to calm things down. There's a peace that comes with that. And so I definitely believe in praying
Mm-hmm.
over the teams that I work with. But I think one of the most successful things that I've seen that was very exciting for me is because I've spent a lot of time recruiting for nurses. Right now, the new grad nurses specifically are very interested in specialty areas. So they might like to go into women's services or critical care or ER. And those areas are more open to new grad nurses than they have been in the past. And because of that, the client, well, not the client, the candidates are all applying to those three areas. And so what's happening is the leadership in those areas, they're absolutely being flooded with candidates, but then you have other areas that are not receiving as much candidate flow. And so a lot of what a recruiter will do is they will end up acting like a matchmaker. A good recruiter should be able to say, hey, this position has this many applicants for it. And this other position here is another good one. And these are the reasons why. And this might be a really good place for you to kind of get your sea legs and then springboard into the other area. And so I was
Mm-hmm.
successful in being able to fill some teams that were really struggling to find talent by using that matchmaker approach. So that's really rewarding. It's not only rewarding whenever the new team member is like, oh, I'm so glad you suggested that. And then the team is like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my goodness, we love this new person that came in. And then you just see it being a win-win for both. And then you watch them grow into their areas of interest a little bit later. That can be really rewarding. It's not only helping to find the people to find the position, it's helping the people to find the right fit. It that can be a lot of fun.
Okay, so you do long term matchmaking, like it's more like a permanent position.
Yes, that's exactly right. I recruit
Um,
directly for the hospital that I work with, and we bring the candidates in, and they're usually in their role for at least a good 6 to 12 months. It depends a little bit on the organization and what their policy is with regards to when they allow transferring. But yes, it's full time. It's full time matches mostly. Yes.
okay. So, what advice would you give, like, in a new grad who's looking for a, a new job or a new hospital home? Like, what tips could you give them?
Yes. A new grad, those are my favorite. That's my favorite demographic to work with. It's so fun because new grads are like bright, shiny pennies. They're so much fun to work with. I would say that, I think like for myself, whenever I started in recruiting, I started in IT recruiting, and I thought I was going to be in IT recruiting until the cows came home. Like I thought I was going to be in IT
Mhm.
recruiting for my entire career, but I ended up taking a turn, and I started in healthcare, and I just loved it so much. And I'm so glad that I took the turn. So my first advice would be to be open to the turns, trying things out and seeing. There are so many people that I've talked to over my career that thought they were going to be, you know, a, an OB nurse, but they or an L&D nurse, but they ended up taking a first job in the ER or in cardiac, and they absolutely loved it, and it was like a duck in the water kind of thing. So I think trying and being open to things is very, very helpful. The other thing that I think that I would encourage new grads to do is to practice interviewing. Get somebody that you can practice with who can ask you what's referred to as open-ended interview questions. So questions that are not responded to with a yes or no. Something that requires you to explain a story or a situation or a scenario, and use good eye contact and get your elevator speech down, why you want this job, why you would be a good match for it, and make good eye contact, and then be a graceful loser if you don't get the position. Not everybody can get a position in labor and delivery as a new grad because of the extreme amount of competition. I mean, for one position, you really might see 50 or more applicants for that one position. So when it is so incredibly competitive like that, it not everybody can get the yes. And so knowing how to say thank you gracefully in that situation can really help you to stay in a recruiter's mind or in a leader's mind when there are future opportunities. Just because you get a no now doesn't mean that you'll have a no in the future. It's in building that relationship and holding on to those contacts and trying again a little bit later. That's a smart approach. That's really a networking approach. Another thing that I saw that was really smart recently is I was at a conference for AWAN, so for women's services, and there was and this is the first time I've seen this. There was a nurse who was a soon to be nurse. She was in school, and she paid, I think it was like $100 or something to go to A1. And what she was doing there is she was rubbing elbows with a whole bunch of nurse leadership folks that were in the A1 conference. And she had her little resume, and she was running around talking about what she wanted to do, which was work in labor and delivery. And I thought, that is a smart plan right there. So you can look for networking opportunities too. That would be another really good tip. Also, if you're doing your preceptorship, if you're doing your clinical rotations and it's in an area that you are super interested in, make sure that you connect with the teams that are providing the training, keep their names. If they're open to allowing you to have contact information or connecting with them in some type of way, that's also a very good strategy. And you could even ask them for a letter of reference too, if that's permitted. So those are some things that new grads might tuck into their back pocket for their strategy as they're looking for that first job after graduation.
That's so awesome. And do you recruit like those who have experience as well?
Yes. Right now I'm primarily focused on experienced nurses, but the same rule of thumb goes. Even if you have experience, like let's just say that you have a couple years of medical telemetry experience or a couple of years of medical surgical experience, and you're looking to break into an area like women's services, the ability to keep knocking on the door and being positive as you continue knocking can really go a very far way, because the competition is fierce in that area. Whether you're a new grad nurse or whether you have some experience, the ability to be nice and to be good and consistent and good with your follow-up and professional, like all of those things can make a difference, even if it's not a yes now, if it's a yes later. There are many times when the organization may have quite a few applicants, and so when you're in a recruiting seat and you have a position in labor and delivery, let's just say, since that's what we're talking about, you may have 25 candidates, let's say. A couple of them are going to have direct experience. Some are going to have med surg or med tele experience, and they're looking to grow into this area. And some are going to be new grads. And so a lot of times, even just to get the interview is a valuable opportunity, even if you don't get the yes at that moment. Because honestly, you can go in and you can rock an interview and still not walk away with an offer when it's so competitive like that. But leaders will remember.
Mm-hmm.
And if you keep applying, as you're seeing opportunities come along, and then the leaders will make note, and then they'll come back and they'll revisit that person again. And then also as a candidate, you can revisit. You can just check in from time to time and say, hey, I just wanted to let you know I enjoyed our time together so much. I just am checking in to see if there's anything new coming down the pipeline. If there's anything else I can do, any further questions I can answer, or like if you get a Daisy Award, maybe you want to update your resume to include whatever awards or certifications and just check in with new information. Like those are really good ways to kind of keep the conversation going. Don't overdo it, but every once in a while, it's okay to send those kind of communications out.
That is so awesome. And I want to switch gears a little bit and ask like a little fun question to use your
Okay.
imagination.
Okay.
So imagine you imagine you had a time machine that could take you back to your early days in healthcare. What's one thing you tell your younger self besides investing in Google first?
I think if I were going to talk to my younger self in healthcare, I I think what I would tell myself is to go really really deep in the units a lot sooner, like get in there and get the nitty gritty information from the very very get go, and also
Mm-hmm.
not to hold on to areas so tight, because
Mm-hmm.
as you develop relationships as a recruiter, what happens with recruiters is a lot of times their areas of responsibility is sometimes based on requisition load and priority and all those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
So there are times when you are pulled from one area and then you're put in a different area to help out there. And that can be really hard because you develop the relationship, and you don't want to let that leader go because you're like, no, this
Yeah.
is my girl. Now we've been in the thick of things. We've been finding
Mm-hmm.
people. And we've been doing so good. And then you get pulled away and you get stuck in another spot. But having that opportunity really helps you broaden your horizons and increases your knowledge, which actually makes you a more effective recruiter. So I would say, um, looking at that opportunity a little bit differently would be something that my young self would do. And honestly, what I said earlier is don't hold on to the path so tight. Have a plan, but hold it loosely and be open for the bends in the road.
Awesome. So, as we get to the end of the episode, is there anything specific you like our listeners to know about you, your experiences, or your side passions before we end the interview?
Yes, and it's gone so fast. Oh my goodness. Yes, I think that what I would tell you, this is this is about my side hustle now, okay? I think
Okay.
that I probably could have started doing this a little bit earlier. And just because you cannot go overseas physically, maybe you just, don't have I call the passport a passaporte. If you don't have a passaporte, you can go, on the internet and you can go through Facebook Messenger, you can do Facebook Live. There are all kinds of opportunities to help in your community or globally the underprivileged if you just start reaching out and looking for those opportunities and don't put yourself in a box. Make sure that you think outside of the box.
Yeah, that is so great because sometimes we just get focused in our own lives that we don't take a chance to look at all the other people around us who need our help. So, I think that is a very good advice.
Yes, yes. And it feels so good too. It's very fulfilling to see the smiles on the children's faces. They're learning and getting to do new things, and then, it gives you an opportunity to help, because there have been times when we've provided clothing to children who absolutely have no clothes. I mean, seriously, no
Mhm.
clothes. And there was one little baby
Yeah.
child in Pakistan who was not really, I think she had on like a pair of shorts, but it was cold at that time of year. And that's what she had. So that's what she was wearing. She was
Mhm.
wearing what she had. And so we were able to go in and help give that baby child clothing. And so there are just all kinds of opportunities out there, whether it's stateside or global, to do for others.
Yeah, that is so awesome. Well, thank you, Lisa, so much for taking the time to join my podcast. And is there any way like my audience can reach out to you, and if they want to learn more about what you're doing on your side passion?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. You can find me easily. Probably the easiest way to find me would be on Facebook. If you type in Lisa Gregory in Spartanburg, South Carolina, I should pop up. And then you'll be able to see some of the fun side hustle stuff that we're doing. And some of the events that we've had for the children are on there too. We're getting ready to do a big one with Eagles in the next little while in Uganda, so that'll be fun. So I hope y'all will check it out.
Wow. That is definitely amazing. So I want to thank you, Lisa, again. And this concludes the end of Scrubs Unzipped, where we unzip the stories behind the scrub. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And until next time, see you later.